Hi, I'm Amy Catapan. We're happy to be here today with Sister Nancy Usselmann, a daughter of St. Paul, a native of St. Louis, and the third of 4 siblings. Today she lives in California. In fact, we've heard she dreams of one day hang gliding off a California cliff. She's a lifelong lover of soccer, has sung in a choir for over 20 years, and enjoys a good cup of coffee and a great film. Since entering the novitiate, Sister Nancy is proclaiming the love of Christ through the media and within the popular media culture. She holds a master's degree in theology and arts. Currently, she is the director of the Pauline Center for Media Studies in Los Angeles, California. She is a media literacy educational specialist and theologian, a national speaker, blogger, and film reviewer for bemediamindful.org. Sister Nancy, welcome to Booked.
Thank you so much, Amy. Glad to be here.
Well, today we're going to be talking about your latest book. I know you have a number out, but your newest one is A Sacred Look, Becoming Cultural Mystics. So let's talk about what it means to be a cultural mystic, because some people might read that and think, oh, a mystic, what is that? Can you tell us what you mean by a cultural mystic?
Sure. Well, first thing people think about when they think of a mystic, they may say, oh, somebody who's so holy that, I can't even relate. St. Teresa of Avila, John Paul II, John of the Cross. But actually, in actual fact, I take a lot from what Karl Rahner said, the great theologian. He says, we're called to be everyday mystics. It means people of faith who live a deep spiritual life and a deep spiritual experience with God that transforms us and all those around us in our everyday lives, in wherever we find ourselves, whether single, married, religious, priest, wherever we are and whatever we're doing. A cultural mystic means that we do live that experience of God, that transformative encounter with God, but in the popular media culture, where we are inserted within the culture itself to transform it from within.
All right, so we're doing it, living this transformative experiences within the popular culture. We're not ignoring the world around us.
Right.
Can we do this at any age? Because I remember early in the book, you made a reference to Wonder Woman, which I grew up watching the old Wonder Woman show too. And you said that as an adult, you had this realization that Wonder Woman and her lasso of truth, and she's forcing these guys into telling the truth. You made a connection between that and what St. Paul says about this being a hallmark of a spiritual warrior.
Yes.
But it's something you didn't realize till you were an adult.
Exactly.
A kid maybe watching it. But can you become a spiritual or a cultural mystic at any age? Or
I think it's first of all, talking about it, especially for youth and young people, is about being media mindful. So first, I think to even realize what are the messages we're receiving from the media, any form of media, film, television, pop music, anything, we have to engage with it in such a way by asking the questions and being critical inquirers of the media. And by that, then I think we can bring our values, our gospel values, our Christian values into conversation with it. And that's what I teach a lot when I teach youth and young adults about how to do that, bringing their own values into conversation with the media messages. And I think as a cultural mystic, then we bring a whole nother area of spirituality to it, our prayer experience, our prayer life. And you could do that at any age as well. But I think it is something we kind of grow into. And you learn by first being an inquirer of the media. Then you can learn how to engage it spiritually. And in Wonder Woman is so fantastic because not only is she a superhero, which many superheroes, there's this whole mysticism of heroism that Thomas Merton calls. He calls it a mysticism heroism, but it's a mysticism that's innately naturalism. It doesn't go beyond to the supernatural, really to beyond this world. But Wonder Woman takes it a step further because of her realization that love conquers evil. Love is what will save the world. She takes it one step further than the rest of the superheroes. That's why she's so awesome.
So that's a great example of how we can look at something in popular culture and see it as a cultural mystic and see what we can pull out of it. So why is it so important? Is it to be a cultural mystic? Is it so that we're looking at the world this way? Is it why should people read your book and figure out how to become cultural mystics?
Well, I think for me, there was always this question of how media and our media life and faith can connect. And it is about being media literate and also faith formation and bringing that together. But I always question, like, what is the theological underpinning that can make that connection for us? And when I realized it really is a deep anthropological perspective, an understanding of the human person and the needs of humanity, that we all, like all those great yearnings and struggles and longings that every human being has. So what is that? The longing for communion, for connection, for intimacy, for purpose, for meaning in our life. We're all seeking that, whether we know it or not. And I think what I wanted to find is, what's that theological connection then? Because in popular culture, in the artifacts of popular culture, really ferments this whole sense of these yearnings of humanity. If you really look at any TV show or any movie, what is it? What are the deeper struggles happening within it? And is it that longing for something more, that longing for hope, for redemption, for forgiveness? You know, it seems a simple human need, but really it's this deep supernatural need. We need that forgiveness, even of God, for us, that grace that keeps us going on in life. So I think that's a cultural mysticism is really about that. It's about finding that deep theological underpinning that then gives us a perspective on how to view the culture.
And how great that you're working with young people too when you're teaching this, because I'm an educator as well, and we know we got to meet the kids where they are, right?
Yes,
and if they're going to spend a lot of time in popular culture, why not use it as a teaching point, right? As a standoff. You reference a lot of TV shows, some very popular current ones like This Is Us, and then one of my favorite old comedies, well, it's not that old, but it's Everybody Loves Raymond, right? Right? And you talking here about coming from a family that's partial Italian. My family ancestry has some Italian in the background too, so we can relate to them. But why do you think people love shows like Everybody Loves Raymond so much? Why was that so popular? Why is This Is Us? Why do we need those kind of comedies and dramas in our life?
I think because it does address these human issues that we don't always pay attention to in our own lives. You know, everybody can look at the relationships in Everybody Loves Raymond, and you know, with the mother and the mother, you know, the mother-in-law, you know, the father-in-law. You know, and it's just so funny because they're real. They're real little interactions, and they're the little foibles that we address in our relationships, you know, the struggles, and they're so funny. That's what they do. They make fun of it because we have to laugh at ourselves for being human. We are human, and so we fail and we make stupid mistakes, and we can laugh about it. And you know what? That's actually a really good thing, to laugh about our mistakes. And I think that's what's so funny about these shows, and even about This Is Us. It's a drama about a family and its interactions, but it also struggles with forgiveness, for recognizing, for being accepted for who we are.
Grief. I noticed a lot of dealing with grief in that one.
The pain, the grief, the separation, the sense of belonging. We all have that deep sense for belonging. And you know, when you begin there with these deep, normal human issues, it also leads us then to a deeper spiritual relationship, you know, and seeing that there is something more than what we have on this earth alone, you know, and that's our beginning of our conversation with the culture, is saying, yeah, we all struggle with our relationships, but there is hope. And I think that's what it is, and we can laugh about it.
Now, how much TV and movies do you watch? Because when you had so many references in here, I kept thinking, wow, she must spend a lot of time in front of a screen. How much are you watching? Is it all just, you know, it's work for the Lord, you must watch all this because this is what you do? But really, how much time do you think you spend?
I honestly can't even tell you about a number of hours, but it is part of our life and our work. And I do enjoy it also just to relax. And I watch TV with some of the sisters, like we watch This Is Us. Sometimes we DVR it so we can watch it later together. And I don't even know how much, but it is part of my work because I review a lot of films and I'll watch a lot of TV shows to be able to blog about them and references of popular culture. So I couldn't actually give you a number.
Well, I love that you say you watch it with some of the other daughters of St. Paul, because it's, again, and I think you talk about this in the book, sort of that sense of community too with some of these things, right? The relationships you build with the people you watch it with and discuss it with as well.
And I think that's part of, because of who we are and what we teach about, engaging with the media. We teach what's called a cinema divina. It's a way of watching a film with the scriptures. It's
like Lectio Divina.
Lectio Divina, reading the scripture, but it's also called a divine, viewing of a film. And so we actually lead retreats on this, but we sometimes do this together in community, and we use it with the scripture, and we talk about it, and we share what we've received, the depth of the film, along with the scripture that we received from it. And so we have a spiritual practice already within our community that does that. And so I guess it's kind of natural for us to even share together about the media we watch.
So is it okay to be watching some of these things, but it's about the way we watch it? Is that what makes us a cultural mystic? And when young people are watching with them to discuss with them?
Exactly. So much, I think it is all about the way we see it and watch it and engage with it. Now, I'm not telling you don't have to go watch everything out there, I mean, because there are some really bad and there's some really evil things out there. Absolutely. I'm not saying that everything is good. However, there is often an element in most shows and in most movies to what is the deeper struggle and meaning that it's trying to draw out. And I think that's the opportunity that we have to draw that out and help make that, front and center. It's yes, there are some language or something in it, but what was the real meaning? Is it a redemptive value? Is human dignity upheld or not in this show? And if it is, boy, we want to draw that out. You want to talk about that. And yes, with young people, it's so important to have them ask these questions, to think a little deeper. It's really a form of theological reflection, but we call it media mindfulness because it's like a media literacy married with theological reflection. It's called media mindfulness. And it's really about asking those questions, but going deeper into the whole story. And what is the story really trying to say? And does it align with my Christian values or not? And we got to answer those questions and deal with that if it doesn't, and why. And helping young people to do that is so important in a media culture and a digital media world.
Sister Nancy has a wonderful way of articulating a vision of how we can navigate this media-saturated world that we live in, not fearfully, not suspiciously, but creatively and cooperatively, in dialogue not only with the artistic intention of the creators of a particular media product, but how God is using it to intervene in our lives, in our culture, and to raise us to be all that we can be, and to be the change in the world that He would love to see as we build a civilization of love. So I would say Sister Nancy has an artful way of doing it, a sensitive way of doing it, a practical way of doing it, and most of all, an inspired way of doing it.
Sister Nancy's book, A Sacred Look, is really a book that's quite significant for this time that we're living in. We're so submersed in popular culture, and sometimes it can feel like it's overwhelming, and it could even be leading us into occasions of sin or negativity or things that we don't want in our life. But the great joy of this book is that it invites us into a deeper relationship with God by making all of those aspects of popular culture part of the spiritual life that we're living. So Sister Nancy teaches us to look around us, not just at the overtly sacred, but at popular culture, and to find the divine, to find the sacred within popular music or movies or television. This is a book for anyone who lives in our world today, a world filled with noise, but also with opportunity. It's great for parents. It's great for young adults who want to engage with culture. It's great really for anyone who wants to consider how everyday life can bring you closer to God.
Let's talk about 13 Reasons Why, okay? I have a close connection with that book because I also have a young adult novel that I wrote that deals with teen suicide. And when I wrote the first draft of my novel, Angelhood, I thought, nobody's going to publish this because it's going to be too religious for the mainstream and too dark for the religious. and then I thought, well, I should even see if there are other books about teen suicide out there. And that's when I found Jay Asher's book, 13 Reasons Why. But then when I'm reading your book, I'm seeing you talk about 13 Reasons Why, and you're saying you feel there is some hope in 13 Reasons Why. And that, of course, the Netflix series has caused some controversy. Where did you see hope in 13 Reasons Why? How did you bring that cultural mystic viewpoint there to find some hope in that?
Well, okay, it is controversial, I think, in many ways. It's different, you know, visually seeing something like that is different than reading in a book because you're visually seeing a teen commit suicide, and it was very graphic. And so that was actually the issue of controversy. I mean, there's a lot of graphic scenes, even sexual assault in the film, in the series as well. So there's a lot of issues that are questionable. And, you know, I'm not a parent, but I would have the parents definitely talk about this with their teens because if they're not watching it, they probably heard about it from with their friends. And so it's an opportunity. And I think that's why the creators of the series made it. And I know Selena Gomez was behind it, and she said because she dealt with bullying in her life too, and as a young person, and so wanted to make this an issue to be able to talk about and not keep it in the sidelines or hidden away. We need to address teen suicide. We need to address sexual assault in the open and not hiding away. You know, it has to be addressed, and I think that's why I see it as. Yes, I see the issues that people have with it, but I also see that, you know, especially the character Clay Jensen is always trying to delve to what is the truth. He always wants to find what really happened and why did it happen and why did they fail this young woman in her life? Like, why? What could they all have done better? And I think he is kind of representing that sense of hope because it's, yes, something terrible happened, but we don't want it to happen again. So how can we change? How can we talk about this openly? And I think he's really that character in the whole series, even now in the second series during Netflix, which takes it in a whole nother direction, you know, which is another very graphic sexual assault scene in that. But does this happen? Well, yeah. It's happening, but is anybody talking about it with their kids? That's the question.
We can't hide the problem under the rug.
And I think the whole point of this, and the whole point of what I was trying to say is that we need to talk about it together. And we need to talk about it with our kids. You know, to think, oh, you know, just shield them away from it. Yeah, you may say don't watch it, but guaranteed, like I was a teen, I went and watched things with my friends. So it's the same, you know, that's just as teens, they're gonna do that. But can we talk about it and say, what did you find interesting about it? Even Stranger Things. You talk to junior high kids, say, why do you find so interesting about this? And even when there was a boy, you know, who was being bullied, and he told the other kids told him the other guy to jump off the cliff to save his friend. Well, is it proportional to jump off a cliff to commit suicide to save your friend from being cut with a knife? Not necessarily being killed, but being, you know, just attacked. And that was a question what the kids all saw in there. They saw it was a friendship. It was all about friendship for them. And I said, well, see, we have to ask them, what are they getting out of it? And why did they find it so interesting? So the same with 13 Reasons Why. We got to ask the kids, what are they seeing? What do you find interesting in this series? And to talk about it. Because if we just hide it away or just say it doesn't exist, well, it does. And in many schools, there is this issue. There are many issues like this that are not going to be communicated a lot with the adults in their lives.
We've been talking a bit about some of the TV shows and movies, and I know you go into some of the popular music. You're a pop music junkie, you confess in here. But not all religious will be that involved with the media. They don't want to engage with it because of some of the negative things that they see. What would you say to them about why maybe they should be involved with the popular culture?
Well, I'm not going to tell anybody what to watch or not watch. Everybody has to make their own discernment for themselves. You know what they knowing themselves and what they can handle and what they can. Some people can't watch violent films like war films, like Hacksaw Ridge was too much for some people.
Saving Private Ryan did
Saving
me in.
Private Ryan, you know, for some reason I actually love war movies. I don't know, that's kind of a weird thing. I get it from my father, he watches them with me. So, but I think it's just, so everyone has to know themselves and what they can handle. So I'm not gonna tell you, you go see this, you don't go see that. That's not what this is about. It's really about knowing yourself, but also whatever you do engage with and make the choices to see, that you are fully engaged, that you are being able to see deeper into what its message is and to draw out what is the sacramental maybe that you find in a film or a TV show. So I'm not going to tell people what to watch or that they have to watch things, but I think to see that, you know, the popular media culture is not going away. It is all around us. I mean, we see about 5,000 to 7,000 media messages a day. And and whether our brain is registering and whether we engage with it or not, that's the question, but it means our brain is registering it. Yeah. So how do we engage them? How do we engage with them intelligently? And I think just to see that, to see that, you know, the culture is struggling, just like humanity of all time is struggling with all the same issues of wanting to that sense, how we enter into communion with others, that we can't live in isolation, that we need other people in our lives, or that we need to search for that purpose and meaning that gives us joy and happiness in life, right? We look at that's what it's talking about. That's what it's talking about. And so much, and yet we can say, well, Christ is the answer to everything we are longing for. But we have to start the dialogue there, you know? And maybe we have people in our own families, in our own circles who don't believe, who are not faith-filled people, or who struggle with their faith. I mean, maybe this is the opportunity to share with them a little bit deeper, but starting with an artifact that they know about, that they're familiar with. You know, so many sisters in my community have family members who don't go to church or who are atheists, you know, but we can talk about the things of the culture and the struggles of humanity, because nobody's exempt from that. Yeah. So we can all start there. And I think that's what the culture is talking about. And that's where we have the opportunity to be evangelizers within that media culture, by starting with those same issues of humanity that we all deal with.
That's great. It gives us a starting point.
Exactly.
I met with somebody this last week who said she knows a woman whose grown children have kind of fallen away from the church, but every Sunday they send each other Catholic memes. It's the one way she could get her kids, at least on Sunday, to think about God, is by sharing Catholic memes back and forth.
There you go.
It's that popular culture is a starting point.
Exactly.
Right?
It's a starting point to lead people closer to a relationship with God.
So what was your starting point as a media nun? How did you become a daughter of St. Paul?
I've always loved movies, music, and books. It's just kind of been in me. And I didn't know where God was leading me. So, but the moment I met, and it is my cousin, older cousin, who was driving downtown St. Louis and saw that there was a Catholic bookstore and went inside. Saw it was run by nuns. And so she went up to the sisters, or the sisters, you know, came up to her and she says, she bought a book or whatever, and she was kind of gawking at them. And they said, did you ever think about becoming a sister? And she has. She has always thought of being a sister since she was young. And so they invited her to a retreat day. And so she said, great, can I bring all my cousins with me? And they're like, sure. The more the merrier. You're not going to refuse. Yeah, right. So we all went. So we felt obliged. We're like, oh, great. We have to go to this, you know, retreat. So we all went. And when I first met the Daughters of St. Paul, and they showed us first a film, you know, when we first came there, and it was in a bookstore. And so I said, movies, music, and books, and talking about Jesus now, I could do that. That's pretty cool. So that was like my first reaction to the Daughters of St. Paul. But it wasn't like I'm thinking of becoming a nun. That was not in my plans. Yeah. So it was really after a couple of years of discernment that I really looked at that, and you know, eventually entered together with my cousin. She left, I stayed.
Oh.
She is married with 8 kids, and I'm the one who remained a nun, you know. So it was like, even though I was the one who's not looking for it. But yeah, and so entering into this community where we're talking hashtag media nuns. So if you're on social media, it's hashtag media nuns. You can look at everything we do. But to me, it's like, yes, this is the modern means to be able to communicate the message of the gospel. And we have to, like our founder, Blessed James Alberione, always said to us, go and preach the gospel in the greatest means that you can to reach the largest number of people possible at any one time. And he would always say, well, if St. Paul were alive today, you know what he'd be doing? Instead of, you know, standing in the Areopagus in Greece, he would actually get on the radio or on television and be preaching the gospel and reach millions.
A YouTube channel.
Exactly.
With so many
he would have
subscribers.
his own channel, absolutely, with millions of viewers. And so that's where we have to be today. And we have to engage with the culture to be able to understand it, to be able to preach the message of the gospel to it.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing how you use media, like we are here at Shalom with TV, to spread the gospel. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Great to have you here, and thank you to all of you for joining us. Happy reading.
Someone who's used media a lot in evangelization, so I believe in the importance of Catholic radio, Catholic TV, Catholics using the new media. Can I encourage everyone to watch Shalom TV? I think it's a great vehicle of evangelization. And God bless all of you.
Shalom World, God's own channel.